Hey, Thea.
Hey, Ann.
All right, so we want to make this one a true quickie. We were a bit too meandering. We just recorded, and we're going to just kind of recap what we were talking about and get to the heart of it and make it short. We're following on the conversations we've been having about men and women, relationships, the dynamic between men and women in microcosm as well as macrocosm in the larger, broader culture. And we identified the fact that one of the issues is expectations and managing expectations. And
Misunderstood expectations and sort of uneducated expectations.
And, I had opened it up by sharing my observation about a couple we both know who got married young, but who were both brought up in the Catholic faith and were counseled. I think the prerequisite to being married in the church must be, I don't know, to go through counseling sessions with their priest to talk some things out and establish some expectations and foundation before they enter into it. And what I've observed over the years is that they have weathered some remarkable storms together and are still healthy and happy. And it makes me lament the fact that we were not given that kind of guidance before entering into relationships. Many failed relationships in our past. And it wasn't just because we weren't brought up in a traditionally religious household, but I think it was a combination of that as well as this culture of this feminist culture that we've been brought up in, where the differences between men and women are not emphasized, where they're not brought to our awareness and consciousness so that we approach relationships with that basic understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say my younger, earlier relationships certainly went, I would attribute some of their failure to the fact that I really had no understanding of that. And I expected far, my expectations were just unrealistic.
Yeah.
So it brought us to the discussion about sex. And go ahead.
And what's required or needed to flow within a relationship in order for sex to be able to be a constant through the many different stages of a family's life.
Yes.
Right. So go ahead and step in. I feel like I'm still forming what I have.
Well, you had said something in that last conversation. It was just basically, we both, quite honestly, want to have sex.
Right. It makes everyone feel better and do everything better.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah. There is so much to gain from a healthy sexual relationship with someone you love.
Which requires real, true openness to be existing between two people, right? Because so when there's a free-flowing channel that is not riddled with resentment, because my man is not functioning like my girlfriend would,
right,
or whatever, then if it's free and flowing, then it can be great and more satisfying and more frequent.
Exactly. And just to not get too deeply into this, but we talked a little bit about priorities, right? Putting priorities in place in approaching the relationship. And we discussed what we're really talking about mainly is unions with children involved.
Yeah.
And once you have entered into the contract of having children together, it becomes a different beast, a different thing, right? And really, it seems to me that the relationship itself has to be the top priority. That does not discount the needs of the individuals in the relationship. But if the relationship is made the priority, that gives one, I think, an ability to be a bit more objective, not personalize things so much. Also very helpful to understand that we have very different needs, very different ways of understanding each other, different forms of communication, and more. And so if we can prioritize the relationship and say, hey, something's not working here.
Right.
Why is it not working? It's not working because I feel I'm not getting this, or I need this, or such and such and such. Well, we can then establish whether or not the other person can help that person get that or not. And obviously honesty in that is helpful. And
which is, you know, self-knowing is a prerequisite for that too. And you know, having compassion for the different stages of life. We know as much as we know at different times. I mean, so
absolutely,
struggle, that's part of the learning, and
obviously
all of it. Yeah,
obviously. And even the, again, compassion for someone who's very different than you, right? And without even having to understand it, but just compassion for it and respect for it, right? And it brought us to the conversation that we started having about couples that we know. I mean, relationships we've been in, couples that we know, and more. But there seems to be a tendency, a pattern I've noticed so I know many couples where the husband ahead of time, before they even have kids, or maybe early on, is very intent on
securing couple time,
securing couple time, making sure that they don't lose what it was they had before the kids came. And that sometimes takes the form of getting an au pair when the baby is an infant, or other forms of childcare, pushing the kids into preschool very early. I live in a county, as I think you do, where attachment parenting is a big thing. And attachment parenting often, what goes along with that is co-sleeping. I know so many couples where the husband has really insisted that the kids go sleep in their own bed before the kids, as you point out even, or the mother is really ready for that, where they don't feel that's time. And what that ends up creating, or like date nights, right? Date nights, or even one couple I knew, the husband would insist on childcare for the woman who was not working to have 3 days a week where she went and had her me time away from the kids, so that she was fresh and ready for him, right? That obviously achieves the opposite. At least it's obvious to us. I don't know why it's not obvious to the men. Because what that ends up doing is it's contriving a situation where the man is getting involved in affairs he knows not of, which is mothering. And he is not also acknowledging the fact that the woman is in that mothering phase. That is a stage, a phase of their lives that is.
And just to like spell it plainly, if a man can recognize that and honor it with true respect and reverence of the stages that the woman goes through in becoming a mother, then that is going to be the thread that makes that woman want that man all
blossom
more.
It's going to also make that woman help that woman blossom, right? If he can embrace all that she is in those in that phase as well,
rather than sort of what I'm seeing is that idea of creating a forced structure is a contracting force,
Yep.
which makes the channel of communication and love shrink
And
get
trust.
smaller and
trust, right? Yep.
And yeah. So it also, I mean, can really be synthesized, I think, into, is it a true meeting? Because when that true capacity for meeting what is happening in the moment, when that capacity is shut off by more structure than is needed. I mean, we have work, we have all these other things that give us a rhythm or structure in life. But when you have your lovingness become structured, there's a plane going by.
Yeah.
When that becomes so structured, it limits and cuts off the meeting, that spark that happens in the real addressing and fulfilling what's coming up in the moments, what's needed. That woman will love you all the more if you as a man can say, oh, I see, you just, you need me to do this laundry, maybe, so that, you can go put the baby down for a nap or whatever, instead of it being, I want.
Yes, exactly. It's still important for the man to express, to very clearly express what his needs are, his physical needs or whatever. But it's very important for him to have some realistic expectation of the space she's going to be in for several years, really.
Right.
And if I could only impart the secret to men, for them to realize that if they would just really honor and respect and support the woman in the way that you were talking about, which is, look, traditional gender roles are here for a reason. Men as provider, especially in the early years, when the children need their mother there most of the time, if not all the time, right? So that she doesn't have to go off to work. And, that is critical. And she's going to devote her time and help this child, establish this strong foundation, right, from which to launch. The more she's allowed to do that, the more independent the child becomes as they grow, as they should, and the more freedom that couple has to start exploring another phase of their marriage and relationship.
Right.
At the same time, we discussed that the importance of the woman being willing and open and communicative about the fact that, hey, babe, I'm nursing. I've got a kid on my boob all the time. I'm sleeping with him. I don't have a whole lot of inner drive to share more of myself physically, but I will, because that's part of our contract actually here too. Right. And if you're good with quickies, we can do a whole lot of them. Let's take a few minutes here. Let's take a few minutes there.
Right.
But I'm seeing a tendency with women who have tried that with their men in those early years, for the men to be so disappointed that the woman is not fully present or something, right?
Which then creates the opposite habit or pattern between that channel of connection. Right?
Yeah.
When it creates resentment, it creates, well, what's the point then? I'm not even going to try to open up that much.
Exactly.
That's not enough.
If she's going to disappoint him every time, why should she even try? Right.
Yeah.
And so then it's this snowballing effect. Yeah. Right. And then he pushes more and she resists more. And
then it's 20 years later and you get divorced.
Yep. Yeah. Right.
So quickies are good. Everyone's happier if you're having those connections. If people can set down an idea, a rigid idea of an expectation, and meet what is, so that what can be born of that can be nourishing and satisfying to both people.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Seems
so let's manage expectations.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the meeting table
Yep.
and lay it out,
Yeah.
right? And then see how best, given the capacity of both people involved, how best we can keep this union going through each phase
Right.
healthily
And
happily.
change with it, happy and healthy. Totally.
And flow with it, right? Flow with it, and have faith.
All right.
Have
Thank
faith
you.
that
Have faith.
that it'll move through one phase into the next, right? And it's all part of the process of relationship.
Yep.
Right? Growing together.
There it
All
is.
right.
Thanks, Ann.
You too. Good.
Take care.
Hey, see you soon. But
Bye.
yeah, bye.